Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stellar Experiences, StellarTalks. Here we are again with a new topic and a new guest. So as you all know, Okan, me, and John has started Stellar Experiences in the middle of 2019. And we are offering professional astrophotography courses, experiences, and tours in Turkey. But at the moment, because of the pandemic, we are only offering online courses. So three of us also doing this Stellar Talks. And every week we will be talking about something new with a new guest. And please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, visit our website, and follow our social media accounts. Okay, guys.
Welcome, guys. I hope you all are doing well. Let's see who is here. Like, no one's typed yet.
Who is here? Let's see hellos.
Yeah, let's see hellos from the chat.
No, there's no one.
So
just a bunch of people now at the moment. I hope you all are.
we have 9 people now, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
So have you guys missed us? It's been a week.
Yeah,
I see İlker.
Yeah, he said hi.
Hello, İlker.
Hi, İlker. Daniel.
Sedat Bilgebay. Hello, Sedat.
Hello.
Thanks for joining.
Ayberk Yaman is also here. Mücahit is here.
Hello, Mücahit.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Mustafa is also here. Hello, Mustafa. Arun.
Whoa.
Görkem is here. Hello, Görkem.
Hi.
Thanks for watching.
The numbers just raised up rapidly.
Is it?
Yeah.
So how many?
So 17 at the moment.
Oh,
okay.
Very good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who else is here? Please write something.
Ellie is here to see Maroun.
You're not here to see us? That it will be disappointment for you because you will also see us. Joking.
Görkem says have a nice stream. Thanks, Görkem.
Yeah, Görkem. Maroun will be here very soon. He's actually here, but you cannot see him yet. Nice to see this Astrophotography show. Thanks, Mücahit. He's one of our friend. Maroun been waiting for the stream
to start.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first to join then, huh?
Yeah. So please, who else is here? Then we will start. We would like to see who are here.
And how about like voice and everything? Hope it's all well. No echoes, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
even though we tested a couple of times, just wanted to ask you guys as well.
Is everything fine?
Well, no bad comments at the moment, so I believe it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So is Rose here? Is Rose watching us?
Yeah, you kicked him last week.
Yeah.
For those that
Meral is here. Hello.
Hello.
All is well.
All is well.
Seems
nice.
Fine right now. Okay. So shall we? İlker, good to hear you guys. This for sharing your valuable experiences. You're welcome. This is a pleasure. And İlker is a very old friend of mine from university times. Okay,
Right.
then maybe we can start with the intro video.
And then have Maroun here. All right, guys.
Yes. Hello again.
Oh, hi, guys.
So Maroun is here. Rose is not here. So everything is okay. That we can make sure that, you know, we started, Rose was here, and second week Rose was here. Third week Rose is not here. Then everything should be okay.
Yeah.
this was my beginning joke.
So you've been waiting for that whole week.
Yeah, we have been waiting for this for whole week. Hello, Maroun. How are you?
Hello, Mustafa. I'm fine. I think I'm fine. How about you guys?
Great to see you.
Great to see you here, man. So it's a pleasure to have you here.
For the ones who doesn't know Maroun, he is from Lebanon. I haven't been to Lebanon, but I'm really big fan because of the beautiful cedar trees. So one day, let's hope. And it is really, it is really a big pleasure to have you here. We have been friends through Instagram for a long time, and not maybe so commonly, but we've been chatting and exchanging ideas and information. That has been really valuable, and it's really nice to see you here. And once we started thinking about this StellarTalks, your name was on top of the list, so you're here in the second week.
Well, that's very honoring. Thanks for this.
Yeah. So how is everything, Maroun, with the COVID, with the collapsing economy, with the extreme explosion in Beirut? How has it been for you?
Well, all of those things, if we start at the beginning of 2020, it's like everything was going down. And I'm not going to talk a lot about the explosion of Beirut, but it was like the knockout for Lebanon. It's like we have suffered all those political problems, all the financial collapse. And in the end, we just have this, just like Mortal Kombat, the fatality. It's like it made everything go haywire. And it's like... most of the Lebanese people, let's say, they are going through a certain very deep depression because of everything else. And many friends are actually started to leave Lebanon. And I got a few friends remaining still here in Lebanon. So, but yeah, it's been a very hard year for everyone in here.
Yeah. Well, we are really sorry. Sorry, John. So, in your words, you're the person of awkward situations, because I was watching one presentation from you. It was a live session, and that's what you said there. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Yeah, it's like I'm very clumsy when it comes to those stuff, and I'd like to, let's say, extend the situation. I get bored sometimes from regular situations, so a small twist from time to time can make things a little bit more interesting. So in general, yeah, this happens most of the time. Yeah. Nothing awkward have happened until now, but you never know.
Okay. Well, there might be some awkward things, has happened. For instance, your photo that you sent us, for the pictures that we shared on our social media was one of those awkward moments. Your beards have some ice falls
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there's a nice story after that. We were in Norway. The first time we went to Norway to shoot the aurora, it was in December 2016. So we were in a certain location, and my friend and I wanted to do some dog sledding. And we looked around, we searched on Google looking for the closest place for dog sledding. It was about 800 kilometers by car. It's like about 9 to 10 hours. So we decided to change our renting location, and we went to Tromsø. We were actually in Ren, the islands of Ren, and in the middle of northeast of Norway. So, and we drove for over 800 to 900 kilometers for dog sledding. And the picture you've seen, actually, it was under minus 20 or minus 21 degrees. And after 2 hours of dog sledding, so it's like all the vapor actually got frozen on my beard. I did not know this, but my friend told me, just freeze. I want to take a picture of you. And I saw it on his mobile. It's like I was afraid maybe my beard is gonna break or something. So.
Yeah. Well, one more thing, then I will let John and Okan talk. So while we were preparing for the broadcast, so every astrophotographer likes to cook and eat. Okay, so we were talking about some food, and you said you don't like food. I mean, you like junk food. So it's shame on you, Maroun. Why are you like this? And you're living in Lebanon, the country of kebabs and, mezes and everything.
Yeah, great food. Just great food.
Well,
and
just
not
gonna talk about it. I'm gonna sit in the corner.
Yeah, just say what you had said to us. Lebanon.
It's like everybody says about the Lebanese food. It's like it's very delicious and stuff. It's like, for me, I don't really give a lot of importance for this. So it's like something very secondary. And shame on me again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, as we've talked before, so you're the person in the awkward situations. What was the most awkward situation you have ever been in, like related to astrophotography, of course?
I'm not gonna talk about something awkward from the funny thing. I'm gonna talk about something a little bit dramatic.
Okay.
When I was in Chile in December 2017, and back in the days, I was planning with friends to go there, but I ended up going alone. And I rarely shoot alone, because in the dark, it's like I prefer to be with somebody else. For example, if somebody needed help, the other is going to help him, and vice versa. So the first night and the second night, I was suffering from a jet lag. The third night, I decided to go out, and I said to myself, since I'm in the desert, so it's like I should take a picture for a cactus. So I went there to the mountains looking for a cactus and all the stuff. And I reached a nice location after doing some off-roading deep in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, for about 1 kilometer inside the desert. And when it was around 11 p.m. or something around this, and it was very peaceful. It's like the stars were so shining in the Atacama Desert. It's like I was still getting used that everything is rotating the other way around. It's like the Magellanic clouds were so shining above me. It's like it was my first really night out. And while taking my time setting up my tracker, polar alignment in the southern hemisphere is different than the northern hemisphere. It's not like you're gonna look for a certain star and look for something around it. No, it's like you're gonna look for specific 4 stars, of course, if you don't have a computer, in order to do the polar alignment. And those 4 stars are very dim, actually.
Yeah.
So while doing all this stuff, I suddenly started seeing 2 flashlights coming from very far. And I said to myself, maybe those people are lost. So after around 5 minutes, those people reached next to me. And while looking at them, one of them used the flashlight in front of my eyes. And I was like, after darkness adaptation, all this stuff, it's like I wasn't able to see it. And suddenly I noticed that there is only 1 flashlight. There are not 2 flashlights anymore. So my first reflex actually was I locked the car. And he was talking some languages I don't understand, and I was talking to him. It's like nobody was understanding on the other person, but it's like I managed to convince him after 1 minute to turn off the light. And after he turned off the light, he decided to leave. So it's like, for me, it's like I was so stressed. It's like I wanted to know where's the other person. So I just used my laser and I started scanning the area. I did not find anyone. But later on, I noticed that I found some traces next to the car. So those people actually tried to steal my car. I was in the middle of nowhere.
No way.
And that was one of those very rare moments when I decide to go out and shoot alone. I don't mean that I never go and shoot out alone, but I was very far away from home, very far away from my ecosystem where I'm comfortable. It's like I almost got stolen. The other day, I told my story to some people, and they told me, yeah, this is a road where there are some drug trafficking, and it's not very monitored by the police. So thank God that you are still alive. So. So it's not awkward, but it's like one of those very serious situations that put me into that astrophotography got me into them.
Yeah, when you started, I was like, you're bragging about this, but now I pity you. So, John, let's hear you.
Well, actually, I also have an interesting story. Maybe I told you, Mustafa and Okan, but I think it was 2 years ago. I was out shooting with a friend, so we were 2 people, and we went to the shore, the Aegean side of Izmir, where I mostly shoot. And as you may have heard, there are some
human trafficking, actually.
Yeah, human trafficking from Turkey to Greece via some small boats, some inflatable boats. And that night, so we set up our tripods and DSLRs and everything. So we started shooting. And we were like, I think 50 meters from the shore. And it was pitch black, like quite dark. And then we started hearing some noise from the beach. And as the noise got louder, like we were quite scared actually, because it kept getting louder and louder, and then people were shouting and there were babies crying, etc. So and then we realized that we were probably in the middle of a human trafficking scene. And we immediately packed our stuffs. Like, we didn't have the courage to take a photo of that scene because we saw some people, probably like from the they were from the human traffickers. So
the bad guys, basically.
Yeah, the bad guys. And I don't know, they can have guns. And imagine like your DSLR is shooting them, and behind there's the Milky Way. So we checked it with a flashlight. We packed everything. We checked it with a flashlight. We saw some boats, inflatable boats, and there were like 40, 50 people. And the traffickers were rushing them onto the boats. They were saying, get in, get in. And then they were shouting something in Arabic as well. Probably most of the people were from Syria. And then we got in the car, started driving, and I called the local cops there and the Coast Guard as well. And I texted, now I remember, I texted Mustafa as well that night at that moment. And then the Coast Guard came. So we were driving far away because we didn't want to attract attention, etc. Helicopters and
that was the Coast Guard helicopter, because then we learned, my wife works in Coast Guard, so then that night we learned that one of her friend was in duty, and they were watching the situation live.
And another interesting thing, the next day, like I posted something about this on Instagram, and then I received a reply from a guy, and apparently that guy was the head of Coast Guard in Izmir, in Çeşme area, and he was a follower of mine on Instagram. And then we became friends, etc. And he sent me the thermal camera photos. Like he said, we saved the people, and they are safe now. They found them on like a few kilometers away from the shore. I think it was like 2-3 kilometers away from the shore at night, imagine. And Aegean Sea can get quite mad with the winds and waves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I was also looking at the chat. Görkem is asking, have you ever got any experiences with any police during an observation session?
All the time.
Yes, yeah. But as we are shooting, far from Stis, it is actually, gendarme.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and once John and I were in somewhere in, northwest of Turkey, gendarme car came and, asked what we were doing. And then I showed my, Coast Guard ID, because I have an ID from my wife. So they were like, okay, he's friend. So we went away with that. Yeah, but let's go back to Maroun.
Yeah.
No, I'm enjoying the conversation.
Yeah. So in your words, Maroun, you said started as just for fun, later became a hobby, then a passion, and after it, an obsession. How did it start with astrophotography? What was your first equipment? And, please tell about that a little.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was in maybe February 2014. Back in the days I had a camera, but I never used it. It was all dusty. It's like I never used it. One day I decided to go out and just try it during the night. And since then, I started doing this manual focusing, taking some pictures at night. At the beginning, I did not know if I was actually enjoying my situation, being in the dark, in the middle of nowhere, with no noise pollution or anything else, or I was really actually enjoying the photos. So it took me a while to realize that I was actually enjoying both of them. So this is when it started as just as fun and all this stuff. And until 2015, I decided to leave Lebanon. I actually moved to the Netherlands. And back in the days, I knew that I'm really gonna miss this hobby. So I stopped taking images between 2015 and 2017. I wasn't, because it's impossible to take images to practice astrophotography in Europe. It's like it's always cloudy, especially when it comes to the West Europe. You've got light pollution everywhere, and in case you got a clear night at a certain location and time on your way to reach that destination, it becomes directly cloudy. So it's very unpredictable, and it's very hard. Especially if I want to compare it to Lebanon. It's like in Lebanon, when it comes to landscape astrophotography, my first camera was the Canon 1100D. So in case it was cloudy, we go to a higher mountain. In case it was more cloudy, we go higher towards the mountain. Like we have around 3,000 meters to go up in order to pass above the clouds. But in the Netherlands, like the highest mountain was 260 meters. It's like it's impossible. I was trying to go to the other side. It's like going towards Germany, going towards Luxembourg and Belgium. I used to meet my friends Ali Khairallah. I guess he was watching us. He just put a comment a few minutes ago. I used to meet him in Brussels, and after it, we used to go to the south towards France, just wishing that the sky remains clear. So this is the only way of practicing astrophotography back then. But at the same time, it was the most time when I advanced my skills, even though I wasn't practicing this hobby, but I was reading a lot. I was researching a lot. It was the first time that I modified my camera. And, after modifying, you notice that you have been missing a lot. So, and when I decided to return back to Lebanon, it's like I got the baggage of information from outside during my free time. And I started to apply my technical knowledge and was actually doing this technical application here because I had access to clear skies, clearer skies, and darker skies. So I had this opportunity to advance my skills. So here, when it started to become as an obsession. It's like whenever you finish work, it's like you're gonna think, it's like, where am I gonna go and do astrophotography today? What is the next target? What am I gonna plan for the next time? So this is how things evolved, and but mainly the things that were mostly the most improvement happened when I first modified my camera. It's like you unlocked a whole new world when it comes to astrophotography, especially when it comes to landscaping.
Yeah. So Marina says, when are you guys coming to the Canary Islands? We are dying to go there, Marina, but who knows? Maybe right after this pandemic, we can visit you there. We would love to.
Hopefully, yeah.
I know Marina actually from Instagram, and yeah, I have seen lots of photos with the moon, with telescopes and all the stuff. Yeah, I was planning.
She's in La Palma. She's in La Palma. Yeah, she's very lucky.
Yeah,
and she actually recently purchased some new mount and new stuff, but I think she didn't have some time to use it yet. Actually, she was going to be also. I mean, I invited her. She's going to be our guest one day. I can say that. So, hello, Marina, by the way. So I know that there are a bunch of guys. You are together, in astrophotography. For instance, Rita, she's also watching us, and she will be our guest also in February. So do you have kind of astrophotography club, or just bunch of friends, like a friend group?
There's a small group that keeps expanding with time. So there's a bunch of very knowledgeable astrophotographers, at least in my surrounding, and Lebanon. We are very close friends. And we have a very, let's say, focused flow of information that has been circulating for many years. So astrophotography in my country, it's like, at least in my region, we always exchange information in order that all of us advance. So whenever somebody gets a new information, a new technique, a new device, let's say, whatever, a new piece of software, we just share it with each other, and everybody does it all the time. So yeah, it's like we've got a community that hopefully soon we might become, let's say, a club, and I believe it's going to be a very nice club. So looking forward actually for you guys to join us one day. It's like the post-COVID days, post-apocalyptic days to join us.
Yeah. And about the sky, like the light pollution condition of Lebanon, you're, I think, quite lucky in that sense, right? How is it in Lebanon, or in general, or where do you go?
I guess it's just like everywhere in the world. It's like we're losing the dark. If you've watched the video for the International Dark Sky Association, we also took the dark skies for granted a few years ago. It's like our location where we used to see, it's like you put your hand and you are actually unable to see it in the dark. But now it's like wherever we go to those locations, it's very lit, it's very bright. And each time we used to think that, okay, we found our spot, we found our best location. And we later come on the next year and we see that we lost it. And especially when it comes, it's easier when it comes to deep sky and finding the dark location, because you only need a dark location. But when it comes to landscape astrophotography, you just need a dark and a beautiful location at the same time. And those are the things that we are missing currently. It's like we are trying to do some presentation to some municipalities to tell them about light pollution, how it affects lots of human aspects, not just astrophotography.
Not only human,
but it keeps
also
getting
natural
harder.
aspects
Animals
too.
and nature, everything.
Exactly. But it keeps getting harder. It's like even if you manage to convince one person, you still need always 1 out of 10. You still need to convince 10 people. It's like if 10 people are convinced, you just see a certain house in the middle of nowhere, or some statues or whatever we're gonna call them, that just shining all bright during the night. So I guess that's the case of everywhere in the world, and I think only an apocalypse is going to be a solution for the light pollution in the world. Hopefully one day.
we are very close to that, actually. Like, yeah, hopefully.
Looks like the world is about to be saved, unfortunately, but you never know.
Yeah.
Same thing here. Like every year, for example, there was a nice spot that I used to go 4 years ago, and now you just can't. Like it's ruined.
There are hotels, houses everywhere close to the area.
Everywhere.
And it's getting ruined every day.
Unfortunately, so this hobby is like it keeps getting harder and harder to find a spot everywhere on Earth, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But there are some stuffs that are some locations that are still preserved in Lebanon. So, for example, when you got some the reserves, and especially when the managers of the reserves are actually they know about the dangers of light that will affect nature, especially that they're taking care, especially around the cedar reserves. So it's like the people who are managing those reserves are very knowledgeable. So they know about light pollution, and they are trying to improve the situation. So actually, you are invited to Lebanon one day just to see and check our skies and the landscape. And
I would love.
We'd love to, man.
It's a good news that we don't need the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Until now, yes.
Yeah. So, have you ever been to Turkey to shoot astrophotography?
The only time I have been into Turkey, it's like I did not have a camera back then. I had nothing to do with neither astronomy nor astrophotography, nothing at all. I was at the Beşiktaş Stadium in Istanbul, I guess. It was the Big Four metal concert that had Metallica, Slayer, Manowar, Megadeth, and all those bands that I always wanted to watch in a concert. It's like they all gathered in one concert. So that was the first time I went to Turkey, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, nothing for us.
So you did nothing about
that one day.
So you did nothing about astrophotography or astronomy related?
Zero.
That's shame on you again.
Yeah, shame on you.
Yeah. But I hope that you will come one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to have you here.
Landing in Turkey can actually take shorter time to reach than some places in Lebanon. So I'm sure it will happen soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah. That's why we're here as Stellar Experiences to provide stellar experiences. So if you want stellar experiences, you will have to find us in Turkey.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's hear you a little.
Okay, so I think we should get on to the topic as today. So today's topic is about broadband filters, aka the light pollution filters, and but this time, like, we will discuss it under the terms of wide-angle astrophotography, or in other words, we can say landscape astrophotography, and like
also in general.
Yeah, also in general, yeah. And so, Maroun, what was your experiences with the broadband filters? Do you think are they useful? So I know that you use them a lot.
Yeah, first of all, I'm gonna say that I guess it's a sentence that we all agree on, that nothing beats dark skies, and
Definitely.
Whenever it's impossible to reach dark skies, sometimes there are some filters that can help us in the situation. My experience with light pollution filters started in also when I used to live in the Netherlands, and it's like, oh, a clear sky, I just go down the street and put my tracker and start to shoot, and all the way. So I needed to start experimenting with the light pollution filter, and my first filter was Astronomic CLS city light suppression. So light pollution filters, they have several names: city light suppressor, LPF. I don't know. They can just be very philosophical about the names, but if you ask me if they are useful, they can be useful sometimes. Sometimes they are not useful. Sometimes there's no filter that can filter out certain light. Yes. So it depends on the light conditions that you have. So, for example, if there is some slide. Actually, you can put the slide in front of you. I'm gonna do a small.
Well, for sure.
Yep.
Okay. So, which one would you like to go?
Okay, let's start with the one that's slide number 3.
Slide number 3.
So it's like there are lots of sources of light pollution with this. It's actually generated by humans and all the stuff, and it all started by the commercialization of the light bulb back in the days of Edison. And it's like they started using light bulbs everywhere, and they lit the world. Until now, you can check the current situation. So there are lots of sources of light, and we just look for what a filter does. It looks for this wavelengths of this bulb and try to block it from reaching the sensor. It's as simple as this if you want to make it straightforward. Our main problem with light pollution, knowing that there are some bandwidths that can be blocked, our main problem is actually the LED lights. LED light is actually broadband. There's no filter that can stop it. So if you're shooting H alpha or 3 or whatever, it's just gonna penetrate the sensor because it can also operate at the same bandwidth that you are actually allowing. So light pollution filters can do wonders, but they cannot do miracles in some situations. So that's it. So they can be useful. It depends on the current light conditions that you have. There is, for example, if I'm living in Beirut, let's say there's certain light pollution. If it's working well, it might not be for useful if you're living in Ankara, for example. So it depends on the light that are being that are surrounding you, actually.
Yeah. So actually, it depends. Choosing the light pollution filter depends on what kind of light you're trying to prevent.
Yeah, exactly. And especially that most of those light pollution filters, they are mass produced. They're not gonna customize this light pollution filter, let's say for Beirut or for Ankara or for New York.
Yeah, of course.
So they just consider all those potential sources of light that are being used, and they just block them all. So it might be useful sometimes it's not useful. Sometimes you only need to block just one wavelength. So
yeah. So maybe we can go to slide number 2.
Right.
And so here we are looking at a graph. Whenever we look for a filter, not only a broadband filter, any kind of filter, we will see a graph like this. So this is the transmission lines. What do these graphs tells us, Maroun? When you are total newbie on filter purchasing, what would you look at, and what do these graphs tell?
Okay, there are, if you want to buy a certain light pollution filter, there's many aspects you need to look at, but one of them is the transmission curve, because it can tell you about the profile, of what is this filter actually doing. So the transmission curve represents how the filter responds and what is actually reaching the sensor. So we can see this curve. It's actually the original white balance filter from Astronomy, which actually simulates the filter that returns the original white balance for a camera after modifying it. So it also represents any other stock camera that is not modified. So this curve represents how much of light of each bandwidth it's gonna penetrate the filter to reach the sensor. For example, our eyes are sensitive on the electromagnetic wave between the 400 nanometer roughly towards 700 nanometer. If you look around the 700 nanometer, about 656 nanometer, for example, where the H alpha resides, it's like you will notice that there are 25% of response on this curve that is reaching the sensor. This is how a regular stock camera, unmodified camera that is not dedicated for astrophotography is gonna respond. And those filters actually in general work around those specific wavelengths in order, they do not boost the signal, they just reduce the things that you don't want. So any light pollution filter, you're adding something towards your optical chain, you're reducing stuff, but the wavelengths that you are reducing, that you don't want, you are reducing them more than the wavelengths that you want. So this is what's mainly happening. So this is a regular, as we just discussed, this is a regular curve that can be compared to any stock camera. And as I just mentioned at the beginning,
this is without a filter, right?
Yeah, this mimics a camera that is without a filter, or the OWB, the original white balance, is a filter that after modifying the camera, if you want to restore again your original white balance, you can use it. There are several brands that do this, for example, but it's on. And as we just mentioned at the beginning, if you don't have a modified camera, you're not gonna benefit a lot of a light pollution filter. That's actually, it's better not to use a light pollution filter if your camera is not modified, because it's gonna be blocking a lot of light reaching your sensor.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Okay.
Do you actually use any light pollution filter? What's your experience with them? It's my turn.
Yeah, well, as you know, I have a Nikon D5300, and it is not modified. And I have IDAS LPS light pollution filter. I use that light pollution filter, but most of the time I use that light pollution filter as a emission nebula enhancer filter,
Yeah, exactly.
rather than light pollution filter. And it really helps because, when I was shooting without a filter, the emission nebula, which means actually hydrogen alpha, was not as it should be. But after started using that filter, things got better actually. But other than that, as far as I know, Okan and John are not using any light pollution filters because they are mostly shooting white fields. Yeah. And we will come to that point. Actually, there's also one question about that from Görkem. Let me see. I experienced much more distortion on edge while using L Pro with my Samyang 10mm lens than without any filter. It's not a question, but it is a comment actually, and we will come to that point. It's very important, especially for the landscape astrophotography. Usage of these LPF filters is a little bit messy, actually.
Yeah, exactly. But I recommend you modify your camera for you. Are you shooting H alpha with an unmodified camera? It's like you're missing a lot.
Yeah,
this is my recommendation.
Yeah, actually, what I'm planning to do is not modifying my camera. Maybe it's modifying my camera, but I really need a astro dedicated camera at the moment.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's the step that I should take actually. But there are some stuff avoiding me doing that.
Yeah.
So some again actually you just mentioned actually, but some people say that light pollution filters are useless and don't use it. What do you think about that?
Well, they can be useless at some situations, but again, it depends on the light conditions that you have. So in general, if you're living in a light polluted area, most of the time a light pollution filter can be beneficial. Of course, it depends on what you are shooting. And of course, light pollution filters has some added values and some drawbacks we're going to discuss later on the other slides of the presentation. But in general, for example, light pollution filters, they also work on some way they can improve the contrast. For example, as we just saw on the curve around the red, let's say, around the H alpha, where is the most sweet spot when it comes to the emission nebula. For example, if you're shooting the Milky Way, you can make the lagoon pop up in red along with other nebulosity. What a light pollution filter does, it actually reduces the wavelengths before the H alpha in a way that whenever this red that you want, the deep red that you want, and the H alpha, it gets popped up around the other reds that will be really lowered. That's why you will see all those nebulosity popping up and a very slight and a very single exposure that you will be shooting. So from my experience, at least some conditions, sometimes you can test it yourself. There's no sweet spot, there's no magic sauce, let's say, in the situation. So you can do your try on the feed. You can try with a filter and without a filter, compare them, and or maybe whenever you go home, you can compare the processing. So I cannot tell you that light pollution filters are useless, or I cannot say that they are always useful. It depends on the situation. So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your opinion on the light pollution filters or the other type of filters? So what's the best filter to use? Like, let's say both for modified cameras and the stock cameras.
Okay, so I'm gonna say it depends. In case we want to compare the filters, there are lots of brands, and in case I had one major issue regarding those filters is actually the reviewing that's happening. So lots of time we see some false reviewing from those very well-known people that I'm not gonna name, for example. One of the filters that I actually use and I really like, it was tested in a situation that is impossible for that filter to happen. So whenever we go in wide angles, most of those light pollution filters we use, especially the dichroic filters or the interference filters, they have a certain limit in the angle of incidence. For example, it depends on the quality, but maximum, let's say 20 to 25 degrees. And we see this very respected reviewer, he tested with a 14 millimeter on a full frame, and he had a building on the side and another tree on the left side. And he said, yeah, I tested this filter and it works perfectly, but it made a little bit of vignetting at the sides. I don't recommend it. So it's not that you don't recommend it because it causes vignetting, because this is false information for the people who's gonna buy this filter later on. And the problem is that actually all those filters on this very wide angle, they can create some commas. You will see actually the stars becoming aligned. So that was false advertising from that person. That's why we see many people buying the wrong filters and the wrong conditions. So you need to trust, for example, the person who's reviewing them. He should have a good reputation when it comes to being critical when it comes to giving the comment. There are some, the transmission curve we just discussed, those are very important before purchasing a filter. So there's no specific filter, as I just said, but for example, I have rarely seen a reviewer sharing RAW files.
Yeah.
Most of the time you see, okay, I shoot this image with that filter and you see this amazing image. And actually you don't know if this image is tracked. You don't know if this image is Photoshop. You don't know if, you know nothing. So we rarely see some reviewed data that we can actually judge. So it depends on the situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like about those graphs, like you need to know which wavelength you want on your photos, and so you need to choose according to that, first of all. And then we have the problems of the new glass putting on in front of the lens, in terms of like how can I say that, lens problems, like distortion sometimes, yes, aberrations, everything else. So you need to be careful about choosing them, right?
Exactly. For example, if you're talking about, let's discuss, for example, in slide number 4. I guess this can answer our questions. It's good that I prepared this. Yeah, that was a very nice question, by the way.
Yeah.
It's okay. Slide number 4. I see a different.
Yeah,
slide.
sure.
Yeah. How nice of me preparing this. So smart.
So in general, let's talk about amateur astrophotography or amateur astronomy. There are two types of filter. We've got the interference filter and we've got the absorption filter. The absorption filter are generally used at the front of the lens. They are made, produced easily with some neodymium, didinium, several types of very simple way to produce, and they can be stored in the front of the lens. So we call them those absorption filter because they disallow certain wavelengths from reaching the sensor. Those filters are good for dark skies. Actually, they can also improve the image and they can improve the contrast around the emission nebula under dark skies. They got some limitation. We're going to discuss them in the future slide. And the other type of filter is called interference filters or dichroic filters. Those filters are made of layered coating, depends on what type of bandwidth we need to reject or allow. And they are layered on top of each other. The problem with those filters that they have limitation when it comes to the angle of incidence. So for example, 25 degrees or 30 degrees at the worst case scenarios, depending on the situation that you're in. And, or else you're gonna start seeing the stars becoming some lines. So that's the main limitation in those filters. That's why they should be actually placed to the closest possible to the sensor. That's why in several situations we put the filter close to the sensor. It's actually if we get them away from the center, the angle of incident of refracted angle is gonna become larger, and we're gonna actually observe larger stars at the edges.
That's why, what I was going to ask, actually, Maroun. The distance to sensor, what does it do? Because as you said, most of the absorption filters just put in front of the lens, or most of the time lens, not telescopes. But there are also clip-in filters that you just put right in front of the sensor. What is the problem between both?
In general, any type of glass that whenever light passes through them, especially when it is broadband light, we're gonna see some refraction. That's why, for example, the filters of the stock cameras, they are actually stick to the sensors. They are put as close as possible. Yeah. But there are some filters that are more tolerable to this angle of refraction comparing to others. For example, the interference filter, they are not very tolerable regarding this. They're gonna do some resonance regarding the frequencies. You're gonna see it's more possible to see some internal reflection in dichroic filters comparing to the absorption filter, for example, because the absorption is it does not make it reach the center, but the dichroic filter is going to do some reflections. That's why most of those filters, even in deep sky astrophotography, we see lots of those halos around the bright stars. And it's actually currently it's a technological limitation, at least with accessibilities for the amateur astrophotography. But yeah, the clip filters that was created by Astronomy, I guess they patented, they created the idea that putting the filter inside the camera in order to reduce this refracting distance when the light reaches us before it reaches the sensor. So that's why this is one of the main reasons that clip filters were created. Okay. So for example, if we can move to the slide number 5, I have prepared some slides, maybe we can compare them.
Yeah.
So absorption filter, it's like they are easy to produce, of course. They work better for broadband because on the dichroic, the interference filter is like you're gonna specify every wavelength you need to allow or you need to reject. That's gonna make some issues. But the dichroic, the absorption ones, they don't have a very steep curve. It's like you cannot control very well the curve or the transmission curve that you are processing, and they are very smooth, and they can be easily be produced, and you can actually place them away in the lens. So that's it. Their problem is that they are not always precise. You cannot really control the transmission curve, or what to reject, what to accept, and all those stuff. And since the curve is not very steep when it comes to its production, it becomes very hard to produce narrowband. So they are not precise, but they can function at a larger angle. Therefore, for example, you can see an absorption filter that can be used on a 14mm camera, for example, and it works fine. But for example, if we move to slide number 6, and by the way, there's something that regarding the absorptive filter, especially if they are based on neodymium or didymium, they can be easily produced to increase the contrast around the nebulosity, that emission nebulosity, especially around the red. So they reduce the transmission around the H alpha. So whenever there's a red light pollution, it's like you will only be seeing all those red nebulosity that you really want, that are actually more popped up on your image. If we move to slide number 6, they are more precise because you can control them more. They also work good under dark skies, but it depends on the type of transmission curves. That's why I said there's no preference when it comes to light pollution filters. I have 2 or 3 light pollution filters, and it depends on the situation when you can choose which one it's better for your current situation. Their problem is they are expensive. Because they are complex to produce, and sometimes they can cause some issues around bright stars. That's it mainly. So, and the most, since we are discussing the broadband for wide angle situation, it's like whenever you go wider with the interference filter, you're gonna see some tints. You're gonna see, for example, the red is gonna become pink, or blue it's gonna become green. All the filters, they produce tint, but the problem is that with interference filters, the more you go wider, the more this tint is changing, and therefore it becomes harder to process out at a later stage. So for example, if we can see slide number 9, maybe. The slide number 9, actually, it can show us this picture is taken from, I did not put the source for it, Astrophotography, I guess. They were showing that whenever we increase the angle of incidence, actually the curve, the transmission curve is changing with the angle. This is one of the main limitations of this type of filters, and that's why, for example, in my conditions, the widest angle I can use with this type of filter is 24mm maximum. It's gonna make some issues, but those issues are less noticeable. They can also compare, for example, if you look at the black curve, it's what's actually the transmission curve at the middle of the field. And if you look, for example, at the red one, you will see that there is a shift between the center and the corners. And this is one of the main problems that I'm not saying that it's impossible to produce, but it's easier to it's harder to deal with this type of filters under dark sky, at least with the current situation, current technology that we have. I'm not sure if anybody did a breakthrough regarding this, but also this type of filters, the thinner it gets, the less bad edges we have. For example, if I'm not mistaken, one of the companies, probably Astronomy, they made a thinner filter, but that's for OSC, for the crop sensors. So they are still, I haven't seen any company that they are still able to make a perfect filters from edge to edge for the full frame camera.
Yeah, that's a big issue.
Yeah, and still we're still talking under the context of wide-angle lenses, because when it comes to deep sky astrophotography, it has been more research regarding this. All the problems have been, I'm not saying all the problems have been, but lots of problems have been solved regarding this matter. But when it comes to wide-angle, this is where the main problem happens.
Yeah, so, like Görkem said, one of our audience is also a friend of ours in Turkey. He said, I also tried to use my IDAS filter with 10 millimeter Samyang lens, and it will not work. So
Exactly.
Just give up. But the
it's
same
always
lens,
easier to use with a telescope,
yeah.
because you don't have very large angles.
No,
And
the same filter will work perfect with Samyang 135 millimeter lens without any problems. So it is like above 50 millimeter lens, it will work perfect, but below 50 millimeter, it won't. So just don't bother.
Even for telescopes, it's like whenever you go towards a very low, small f ratio, it's like the angle of incidence is gonna increase. And that's where, for example, you will start needing those ultra speed, the narrow band filters. They are adapted to this type of very large angles of incidence.
Yeah, that is what we were discussing with Ross last week. So when we are buying filter, of course, we are also taking care of the speed of our optical system.
Exactly.
Yeah. So overall,
I was discussing with Ross today that I haven't watched his recording yet. So he said, "Yeah, I haven't watched it too." So I'm not sure if he joined us. He was telling me that he might try to make it.
So before we go on with the questions a little, overall, Maroun, what would you know, I want to buy a filter, let's say, and I shoot wide angle astrophotography landscapes. What would I need to care when buying a filter? And let's say I am also doing some wide field deep space astrophotography with telelenses. What would I need to do? And with telescope, what would I need to do buying filters? Okay,
regarding with telephoto lenses, and I have a DSLR, I have found great results with the Optolong L Pro. I have it has done a great job, especially that when you're doing some deep sky astrophotography and you need to stack and all those stuff, it's gonna be very beneficial to create this contrast around this emission nebula. Of course, it blocks some wavelengths that are sometimes very useful, but and on the counterpart, when it comes to emission nebulosity, it's gonna. So also, it depends what you want to image. For example, let's have this example. If you want to take an image for the Lagoon Nebula with the trifid around it, all this stuff. For example, I would recommend using a light pollution filter because it's gonna help you increase the contrast. But also, it depends on the curve. What are you blocking? What are you allowing? So it depends on the quality of the skies also. Mm-hmm. But for example, in case you wanted to shoot the dark horse or the dark horse nebulosity, the bright spot of the Milky Way, next to the bulge of the Milky Way, it is this particular part of the Milky Way is broadband, so it's gonna block a lot of light that you want. So you might end up with pinkish or very orangey or very flashy orange and other stuff.
So it is better without filter.
So it depends on the type of object you're trying to image. For example, if you want to shoot a dark nebula, for example, let's say for the Iris Nebula, for example, it might also depend if you're shooting it from a very dark location. I would recommend not using any filter at all. But if you're using, for example, Bortle 5 or Bortle 6, or let's say Bortle 4, the light pollution, for example, the L Pro or the EDAS LPF D1, for example, or D2, they're gonna do a great job because there's a great similarity between the transmission curve of the EDAS and the L Pro, for example. So they might function the same. When it comes to the sharpness, I'm not sure if they have the same sharpness because, for example, on my telescope, I use the EDAS LPF D1. I have been using it for a long time, and I have been amazed since then. But as we just discussed, it just depends on the type of objects you want to image. For example, some reflection nebulosity, for example, they can be broadband. As we just discussed, the part of the Milky Way, they are broadband. So it's a combination of the current conditions with the current curve, the transmission curve of the filter and the object you are using. There's no sweet spot as we just discussed. So from my perspective, if I were under dark skies, I just remove all the type of filters if I'm shooting a broadband target, for example.
Mm-hmm. And also, I would like to underline something because it just came to my mind. Like I said, I'm using an IDIS LPS filter, but it doesn't, it doesn't perfectly fit right in front of the mirror. So it is, it is moving a little, and when you're shooting, this is actually a problem. So the filter should be as parallel as possible to the sensor. If it is not parallel, if it is moving from, because, your camera and lens will be on top of a mount, and the position will change. While the position is changing, if the filter moves a little, then it will affect your, especially the corners. So you have to be really careful, and you have to make sure that your filter is not moving at all and is parallel as possible to the sensor. Right, Maroun, what do you say about that?
Yeah, especially when it comes to the clip filters, because let's say the cameras were not produced to have a clip filter inside of them. If we look back in history, most of the clip filters were present for the, I'm going to give an example about the camera brands. They were present for the Canon, more for Canon than Nikon's, because the size of the Canon were actually more standard. So they were able to create one filter that works on several cameras. Yeah. It was until late 2016, maybe 16 or 17, were the first clip filter, according to my, if I recall them well, that whenever we saw the first clip filter for Nikon, for example.
Yeah, so, and they are still problematic actually with Nikons. They are still
and also it depends if it was a full frame or not, because the clip filter, because I use Canon, I don't have much experience in Nikon, but for example, the system of installing a clip filter for the full frame is different than the crop sensor. For example, the full frame, it just enters right inside the mirror box, and it just hangs the mirror up so it doesn't come back in, and also, but in case on the crop sensor, just the shutter and the mirror then can keep flapping all the time. So there are two different type of them, and since the cameras are not made to have filters inside, the filter is something that was later added to them. Sometimes you've got some extra spacing where the filter can play, because sometimes, for example, the same brand of filter, the same model, I tried it on. I tried two filters on my camera. One of them had more spacing than the other regarding it was playing, and. Also, the same filter, I tried it on my camera, it had a different spacing on another one. So you've always got this type of problems. For example, you can keep the mirror locked up, and it depends on the kind of situation you have also.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that because it's also an issue with the filters, especially with the clip-in ones. And like I said, it's still problematic with the Nikons, because, for instance, I have, it is not a broadband filter, but it is STC Duo. I actually have the 2-inch version and also the clip-in ones. And also, again, from STC, there is one filter, I cannot recall the name now, but it is like a light pollution filter. So the surrounding which fits into your camera are not well manufactured all the time. So you have to be really careful about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just to add on top of that, it's like most of our telescopes and lenses, they are made of very expensive glass. So sometimes adding this extra glass to them it might be of a lower quality. So we might be taken with using, if we add a filter that, for example, cost $200, and we're putting it on a telescope that costs $1,000, we might be reducing the cost of our telescope, or our telescope might be making an image just like any other telescope that is out of $200 or $300. So we have to make sure that whenever we're using this filter, it's actually worth it. So we should always understand how our filters work, what are the limitations, comparing to the limitations of our optics. So we should really take care of this.
Okay, so I think let's have a look for the questions. Let's see.
Show me what you got.
Yeah.
We can talk about the iPod that you got.
No,
a friend of yours is saying that let us all buy all the filters.
Yeah, I saw that. So
yeah, by the way, that's a friend of mine who took the picture of my beard, by the way, and Norway.
Okay. Okay, so Okan, are you doing the questions?
Sure, why not? Let's start with the iPod, as John said. So
no, let's not go there.
No.
Before
Not yet? Okay.
Not yet. So before questions from the audience,
Okay.
then that part.
Okay, so we have another question from Arun VJ. He was asking, what filters do you use for the Samyang 135mm?
Okay, so
Do you have that lens actually? No, you don't have that lens, right, Maroun?
definitely. You talking to me?
Yeah.
I just want to talk about this lens in particular because I don't believe in miracles, but I find this lens one of those very few miracles that happened to astrophotography during the last 5 to 6 years. It wasn't originally made for astrophotography, but I'm sure that only astrophotographers are the most people who purchase this lens. It has very low vignetting. It's very fast. It functions on full frame. It's sharp from edge to edge. You can also use it as an astronomy camera, and it can still sharp from edge to edge.
0,0 color aberration.
So
zero everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you might have a slightly vignetting on f2.0, but it can be easily fixed. So there's no issue about
in full frame cameras, you will have a little bit more vignetting, but yeah,
exactly. But if you tell me which filter I use, I can tell you which filter I use, but it depends on the situation. For example, if I was under dark skies and I was shooting a galaxy, I wouldn't use a filter. If I was under dark skies and I want to shoot a nebula, for example, if it was an emission nebula, I might use, for example, I might use the L Pro in order to increase the contrast about this nebulosity, or the ADAS. No, I don't have the ADAS and clip filter, but it might actually work because they also have the clip filter. So this is from my perspective, in case I was under this situation for the 135mm. But as we said, it depends on the object we want to image.
Anas asks, I hope you guys are going to talk about multiple narrow band filters like the quad filter from Radian. We actually talked about it last week. So if you go back and watch the episode 1 with Ross Clark, you will have the answers to your questions about this narrow band filters.
Hello, Anas. I think we're gonna watch it together.
Okay.
Marina also told that she has a CLS clip filter from Astronomy for her Sony A7S, and she's pretty happy with it, despite the vignetting.
On which focal length? We will wait for her answer, I guess. It's Astronomic CLS was one of the first light pollution filters I have purchased, but in case you were living under dark skies, or
Which she is.
it can be reduce a lot of needed wavelengths that she wants, and because it's a very strong filters, and when they say, for example, the city light suppression, this is mainly adapted for cities and very heavy light pollution comparing to other light pollution, especially that also the CLS it has a lower. True that it creates a very strong contrast around emission nebulosity and other stuff, but it also has a lower transmission curve comparing to other filters. So if you are under dark skies, it's nice to try without the filter, and maybe you can be benefiting more from other filters in case a filter was required. This is my personal opinion. So
yeah. So Sedat Bilgabay has what lens was that? Sorry, I missed it. It is Samyang 135 millimeter f2.0 lens.
It works perfect.
It's a miracle lens, and there was another miracle lens. I actually tried to buy that lens for a long time.
It's a fortune.
It is, yeah, it is a fortune now. It is Nikon 180 f2.8 AIS-S, and you know I found one in Istanbul, and they said the box was not opened, and it is lens from 90s actually. It is not a new one.
Lens, right?
It's an old lens. It is one of the iconic lens from Nikon for astrophotographers, but they asked for a fortune, so I said, okay, I don't want it. So it was Samyang 135 millimeter. It's an amazing lens. Yeah, it's an amazing lens. There's no
and also the best budget option as well.
Yeah.
And on top of it, it's relatively cheap. And as we just said, you can use it as an astrograph. It's like wide open. You can just launch an astronomy camera with filter wheel, and it just works perfectly.
And also, I always say that, there is no limit. I mean, the number of objects that you can take with that lens, with full frame, you will have a wider field of view, and you will have lots of, molecular clouds, emission nebulas, or, cloud systems and everything. And with crop sensor, again, you'll have lots of objects that you can. I mean, you cannot even finish the objects that you can take with that lens. Seriously, if you want to start astrophotography, I always say, deep sky astrophotography, start with a crop sensor, DSLR camera with a good sensor, Samyang 135, and something like Star Adventure or Iaptron Pro or something like that, which can hold that lens and camera. There you go. You can go for years really good with those equipments. You will not need anything else. Yeah.
I would totally second that, because at the beginning, when I was doing this transition from landscape to deep sky, and the middle, I just had my tracker. I used to go with my friend Daniel. I guess he was one of the first person who said hello at the beginning. We used to go to the dark sides. He was used to set up his telescopes, and I used to set up my tracker with 135 millimeter. It's like, yes, I'm a deep sky astrophotographer, but it's like, okay, it's true that I was getting some very nice results that I used to enjoy, but the very nice part about it that it's a very portable setup. This is one of the most important parts. I took it with me to Atacama, to Egypt, to Wadi Rum, to most of the places that I have taken, and I was shooting some deep sky objects without having any telescope around me, and actually the result was very satisfying after all. So I would highly recommend this as with my experience, let's say, for any beginner who likes deep sky astrophotography, because it's gonna go with them through all the phases and the transitions that a deep sky astrophotographer goes to. For example, the tracking, the stacking, the processing, all those pics and sight stuff, until that person gets this telescope with the guiding and start getting more extra exposures at a later stage.
Yeah, but Maroun, what I think is, you can be a professional astrophotographer with that lens also. You don't even need to upgrade upgrade your system to a bigger
Focal length.
mount or a bigger, longer focal length. You can be a professional astrophotographer. I mean, professional astrophotographer with that lens, actually. So
you mean you can't, or you can?
You can.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't. If you're into wide field, for instance, I still keep the lens, but I just need a mount like a StellarAdventure or something like that, a portable mount to use that lens, and I will do it one day because I sold my StellarAdventure to John, which I regret, and I will say it every
live stream.
time. Yeah. So Marina,
I hope it was worth it.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Yeah. Marina said, you asked which lenses. She says 24, 105, and 200 millimeters. CLS.
For the CLS clipping filter.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah, so she's using them for the deep field, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Does it work on 24 millimeter? Does it work well from edge to edge? That's new to me. I tried it with this the setup actually. I'm not sure if it works well on the 24 millimeter. It might, for example, you can go up to you go with the narrow, let's say f ratio,
Mm-hmm.
or narrow aperture with the lens. It's good for her that it's working.
But if you're tracking, then it makes sense. But if you're not tracking, lowering down, stopping down your aperture with a filter, because the filter will be cutting some of the lights already. And if you are cutting some of the lights by stopping down your aperture, then you'll have to push your ISO towards upwards.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm impressed actually that it's working on the 24 millimeter. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see if there are other questions. So Zanderful asked, what's a good resource to compare filters? I'm asking bandpass specifically. What's a good resource to compare filters, if there's any, Maroun?
I'm not aware of any resource. Unfortunately, there's no resource for this. So, for example, when it comes to the deep sky astrophotography, there are lots of threads on Astroben when people did their research about doing this band pass of all those filters. They can do the test across lots of aspects. But when it comes to the wide angle, it's not a very studied field. At least we see a person, for example, sharing an image with that filter. We never see them comparing another filter with it. So, or you see those brand ambassadors showing those extravaganglorious images taken with those filters, and you actually in the background you cannot really know if this is a single exposure, a 100 image stacked, or purely photoshopped. So currently, according to my information, there's no place I have seen on the internet that compares those filters. There's no specific resource for this.
Yeah, so Sedat Bilgebay says Jerry made that lens famous, the Nikon 108 millimeter one. So that is a very, very famous filter. One day I'd love to have one.
I think Ali is right, by the way, but
and Mahmoud said iyi yayınlar. Thank you, Mahmoud. He is also a friend of mine. Thanks for watching. Sorry, John?
Ali says resource to compare filters is Maroun.
Yeah.
Let me think. Yeah, I agree. No,
not to brag, but yeah.
No, I can tell you, I can give you at least, I can easily compare 5 filters that I currently own, and a few of them I have owned them only because of those bad reviews. And I did not know there were bad reviews at the beginning, but since they tell this filter is perfect and all those stuff, and I come and try it, it just simply doesn't work. So yeah, I can help comparing a lots of filters. Actually, I started working on a blog post the last year that I haven't completed yet. I was comparing those filters that I own and with the conclusion about what is the type of information that we want to know as astrophotographer. How can we really compare them? We just need raw images, single exposures with specific information about the gear, just to see if this compares to our gear or not. Number one. Number two, if we are really accept those results or not. It's not about putting a certain filter on 14 millimeter, a clip filter, and you test it and you put a building on the side and a tree on the side. Definitely you're not going to see the commas of the stars because there are trees and buildings there. So yeah, that's the main problem. One of the main problems are those reviews that tell you that those filters are perfect, and they might be perfect, but not with the current situation that you just tested.
Yeah, actually, what I think is, not only for filters, but for all astro equipments. There is no perfect astro equipment. There is perfect astro equipment for the situation.
Exactly.
For your problem to solve. So there is no perfect astro equipment. Just there is perfect equipment for the situation. So let's be aware of that.
I mean, this is a hobby with lots of parameters, and it changes like every night. So
exactly.
There's a nice question from Görkem.
Definitely.
Okan, if you like, go on, or John.
Görkem says, even though it's an off-topic question, he wrote, which combination would you prefer while taking astrophotos under heavy light pollution? High ISO, short exposure time, or low ISO, long exposure time?
This is definitely not an off-topic. It's also related to the filters. But it can be also answered the same way if you are under dark skies and you want to compare, for example, a lot of short exposure or a low number of very long exposure. So it depends on, I'm sorry to say it, but it depends on the current situation, because you've got a main problem that you've got lots of type of noise. For example, the read noise, this is the most important part, and you need to swamp it. So you need to take into consideration lots of other stuff. I'm gonna take, for example, my experience with the Canon 6D, the modified Canon 6D. It becomes ISO-less after the ISO 1600. And it's true that the sweet spot of this camera is around this ISO, but even between of course, it has a higher read noise at ISO 100, but even if you go lower on the ISO, we don't want to forget that we are increasing our dynamic range. So we should not always take only the noise into consideration, but also the dynamic range. So, for example, I would if we are shooting from the city and with heavy light pollution, I would recommend, actually, if they want to broadband, I would highly recommend the CLS CCD. With the CLS CCD, for example, to reduce the heaviest part of light pollution, because it's made for cities, and currently it's the best. If you're gonna shoot broadband, it's currently the best for me. And if you're gonna go shoot a narrow band, or for example the UHC, there are several types of filter. For example, the quad band and the tri-band, they are actually a narrower version of what used to be called the UHC in the past. So it's some very light pollution with not very tight. It's not very tight for a light pollution, but it's wider than a narrow band. So that's also would be an extra option. So maybe changing the filter might improve, for example, because they can take a longer exposure. So if I want to recap my answer, it would be the same answer towards multiple, a very high number of short exposures or a very low number of long exposure. It would be the same answer for this. And that's a very long debate that can be found on the internet. I'm not going to enter, but it's the same answer, but with using the best filter for this.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And
I would
actually,
also,
there's a sweet spot in the middle, of course. But the main target is to swamp the read noise in this current state.
Yeah. As you mentioned, we have to actually talk about native gain or native ISO in this matter. If possible, you have to better learn your native ISO of your camera and stick around that ISO because it won't change anything, even if you go up or go down, and stick around that native ISO and longest possible ISO. And also, if you're using a lens and if you're using a fast lens, let's say f2.8 or 1.8, depending on your lens, depending on how much aberration it creates when it is wide open, just stop down 1 or 2 stops and use the longest exposure on native ISO if possible. Exactly. But sometimes native ISO is very low. For instance, I use Nikon D5300. So its native ISO is around 200 to 400. So there are times that you cannot use 200 or 400 ISO because it will not be enough. So keep the ISO as low as possible around that native and longest exposure and widest aperture as possible without aberrations.
I would definitely agree on this. Actually, this is what I do, but there's one extra information that might be very helpful in here when you are talking about the native ISO, and we rarely see it documented or whenever in those articles we see. For example, the native ISO, for example, for a camera is the standard. Let's say it's 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600. And there are some times where the camera, you can enable the 1/3 or 1/2. For example, between the 800 and the 1600, you've got the 1000 and the 1250. Those intermediate ISOs, they are not recommended for astrophotography because, for example, if you shoot ISO for 1250, it usually the camera sensor uses the amplification, the electronic amplification or the gain of the 1600, but later it converts it to a lower exposure that works on 1250. And in case you use the ISO 1000, it's gonna use the 800 ISO, the closest ISO to it, and later on it's gonna push the curve to become a little bit brighter. So it's very important when it comes to astrophotography to use those standard and native values of the ISO, because you will be introducing some extra electronic noise that you are actually you don't want them to happen.
You mean the full stops on the ISO stops, right? Like 100,
exactly.
200, 400, 800, and
That's
then goes on.
Yes,
exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
When it comes to single exposure, it doesn't matter.
1,250, not like 1,250 or
It depends on the sensor, but this is what I'm aware of. I read it in one of those.
Yes, I also read that, and I also try to stick that rule. Yeah.
And by the way, Rami has a question here. He says he heard a lot about LED lights and the bad effects it has on astrophotography. So is there any new filters that deal with this problem with LEDs?
Yeah. Hello, Rami. Rami is a friend from Jordan, by the way. Yeah. Okay. Oh. I believe that you are still seeing me. Welcome to Lebanon, everyone. We do have some electric. I've been waiting for this. That's why I put the UPS for the internet router in here. But I was waiting for this, actually. Rami, I'm going to answer you. There is one of those slides, maybe slide number 3, where we were showing, there's no need to put it, by the way. But when we were saying putting the specific wavelengths that we want to block them, we mentioned back that the LED actually is very broadband, and this... okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, so the LED, it's very hard to filter out because it's present everywhere in the spectrum.
Yeah.
There are some filters, for example, the EDAS LPS D2, if I'm not mistaken. It is
You're right.
more optimized for LED. If I'm not mistaken, if I did not forget the exact name.
I guess you're right.
It's optimized for LED, but still LED is gonna be very hard to deal with. For example, if you got a very strong LED, even with the narrowest band of a filter, it's gonna be polluting the photons that are reaching our sensors.
Yep. Okay.
So just to answer it in short, it's gonna be very, very hard to deal with LED. Especially of course, there are different type of LEDs, but the LED that is mostly used is very harmful for astrophotography.
Yeah. So stay away from LEDs. Okay. So I think we're done with the questions. Of course, the ones who have further questions, they can go ask Maroun, or they can come ask us another time. We can go to upload question now. John.
Yeah, you really like those questions.
Yeah. We've been waiting for it whole time.
First of all, first and foremost, how many do you have?
Yeah, I don't have many actually. I just have 3. I had the honor to be featured 3 times. By the way,
You have 3. So let me find the unfriend button.
Yeah, actually, I believe the first time we had this conversation about iPod, you and me, Mustafa, it wasn't when you went for the Aurora. It was actually because of after the 21p Jacobian Zinner, the comet, back in the days, 2018.
Sol and Hard Nebula with 21p.
Yeah.
Exactly. When actually we had agreed on a certain point that we were comparing some photos, and Mustafa's photo was actually better than the one that was published on that website.
Much better.
Exactly, much better. The thing is, I'm not defending anyone, but I don't think the people who are running this platform, they have all the time to just receive and to manage all those photos arriving from everywhere in the world. Especially that all the astrophotographers in the world were shooting that comet. So it's hard. It's like once I was running a competition for astrophotography and I was managing all those stuff. I was receiving a shitload of images every day, and it was very hard to manage. So I totally understand this part. So yeah, there are. I've got actually 2 landscapes, and actually 1 landscape, 1 deep sky image, and 1 a deepscape. So even for the deep sky image that was featured on iPod, I was actually still thinking as a landscape. So it's like I was making a time lapse and my mind for the ground. So we can discuss it maybe in a while.
Okay.
Nice. Well, so what's your secret for iPod? Like,
the question is not. No, the question is not like that. Please, John.
I think, Mustafa, you want it to yourself. You don't want it public.
No. The question is like, what is the secret sauce for upload?
What's the
sauce? You said. You asked what is the secret? No, it's not the question.
So,
first of all, I'm not sure why you consider me that the master of that. I only have 3. For example, you've got some people who are 40 or 50. For example, between Deep Sky Colors and Babakta Freshis, they've got between 50 to 60 iPods, if not many. Maybe they have better information. They can answer you this question.
Yeah, we have come with some some sauce recipes with Ross, but we are not sure. We just want to make sure.
I did not hear what Ross said, but I can give you my perspective. I do believe that iPod, they are not a competition for astrophotography. For them, they do care about the scientific information behind this image. Yeah. So whenever you find this sweet spot between science and the beauty, the art and the science, this is where you are actually impressing those people. And this is actually, and they will be happy for it, and they will simply do it. So I do believe that it's my personal opinion, just like taking images of deep sky images, disregarding if you took 100 hours to get this image, if for them it does not give them any extra scientific value for them, because their target is to spread information. Of course, they are happy with photos and they are happy to share them, but most of the time they do look this with this extra, let's say, twist of scientific information they are able to deliver with this. So this is what I believe they do care about. If you want to go deep down inside about the technical part of astrophotography, about the best images, about the best technical information, they never claim that they are the source of it. And actually the best place for it, and actually you can check Astroban, they've got a great astrophotographer there that you only see them published on Astroban. And when it comes to the technicalities, Astroban do care about the technicalities, while APOD, they do care about the scientific value that can be
added to
developed
artistic
on top of
part. Yeah, I agree. It's just all joke, about.
So it's a combination of science and beauty together. This amplifies the chances, at least from my very, let's say, narrow experience, only 3 comparing to many people who got much more than me. So
okay, so let's go to slide number 12.
Okay. So slide number 12.
Yes. So this is your latest upload. Yeah, tell us the story, Maroun.
Yeah, it's a funny story regarding this, because it was in the middle of the lockdown back in the days, and all the world back in the days was under lockdown. So it was in
beginning of July, or
yeah, it was around this period. So everybody was in lockdown back in the days. We had a little bit of freedom, and it was after that I moved from the city and I moved to the mountains, all the stuff. I just left Beirut. And I have been monitoring this comet since the day they were discovered. It's like each time there's a comet that is being discovered, just like I have a list of them, I just keep monitoring the magnitude that is being they are being changing day after the other. So if it was actually increasing in a speedy way, it's like there will be some potential with the comet. And that's regarding this comet specifically. So I noticed that this comet was getting brighter and brighter. So I shared information about this comet with my friend, and I told him that there is something interesting about this one, especially that I don't have experience with bright comets at this one. For example, I remember...
Do you remember Hale-Bopp?
Yeah, exactly. I do remember Hale-Bopp. I had nothing to do with astronomy back in the days. I used to look at the stars. They used to blink. I used to, nice blinking, but it's like I never used to see any value behind this. So I remember Hale-Bopp, and it was extremely bright comparing to this one.
It was 1997, and I was a university student, and I remember seeing it on sky, even brighter than Neowise. But back then there wasn't even cell phones, or there wasn't even digital cameras. So exactly. I never thought of shooting it,
Yeah, exactly. Knowing that, back in the days of Hale-Bopp, I used to have a camera, but I never thought of taking images of the stars and the comet and all the stars. Yeah, it's a little bit ironic, by the way, because I really wish that I took a picture of Hale-Bopp.
Yeah.
So what happened regarding this comet is like during the day I started scouting about some location about my area, because I don't want to drive very far. And because I wanted to add something extra to the comet, which is actually the ground. I could have easily shot the comet from my roof, or for example, from down the street, and part of the comet alone, all the star, with the sky without the ground. But I wanted to push it further. So I packed everything in the car around 2 a.m. and I went to this location. Actually, the first location did not work at all. I had 2 light projectors at the same location when I was putting it. So I changed location. I studied it. I tried to check where could it possibly regarding, you start taking the stars as a reference, and the stars that you need are actually below the horizon. So you start doing this prediction, the mass, doing those measurements is going to appear in here and all that stuff. And whenever I set up my telescope, and later on, I noticed that I don't have my laptop. So that was taken, actually, that was not taken with a lens. That was taken with my refractor. It was 505 millimeters. So I got back to the roots and I used my telescope with an intervalometer. And I was shouting like a baby at 4:30 a.m., especially whenever I first saw this comet on my live view. It's like I did not expect that it's going to be this bright. And that was at the early stages of the comet, because we got lots of brighter versions of this comet later on. It was just at the beginning. It was after surviving its orbit around the sun and going back to the universe and the solar system. Yeah, of course, many people, including myself, I got brighter images of this comet later on, but I really like this photo because I managed to get a photo of the ground and the sky at the same time. And it was, it was very hard to me to find this during that very same night. And by the way, there's a very nice group on Facebook. It's called Comet Watch. It's a great resource for comets, the bright and the non-bright ones. But for example, the first time and whenever there's a new comet that's discovered, it's published there. Of course, there are many other sources, but since we're all on social media, so Comet Watch Facebook group is great resource for comets.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a really nice one. I remember this photo before it was iPod. And also Sedat Bilgebay says, our Tunç Tezal has 64 iPods, by the way. Yeah, he is, we are very proud of him. He has lots of
I did
iPods.
not hear the name.
Tunç Tezal. He's a Turkish astrophotographer. He's one of the oldest astrophotographers.
So most probably I've seen these images, but maybe
not
I don't
oldest.
remember.
I mean, in terms of age, but he is one of the, you know.
Okay. Yeah, great. I will check. I'm sure I've seen. We've all seen all of their photos.
Yeah.
The funny thing, one last thing regarding this picture, because since I did not have my laptop, so it's like I also wasn't able to do the right polar alignment. So I also did the polar alignment manually. The electricity just blinked, by the way. Did you just know?
Yeah. We just saw that. Yeah. So let's have a look at the other photos, like slide number 13 or 14.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and this is the second time I was featured on iPod, and finally I was in Turkey when this was published on iPod. I had a project in Turkey, so I submitted it. It was the last thing I did. I submitted it. I went to the airport. It's like I woke up the second day and I noticed it was featured on iPod. So originally the time lapse of this comet was featured. I went with a friend of mine to this comet and the mountains of Lebanon. It was the first time we shoot a comet. It's like the first time we tried 5 minutes exposure. It's like we see the comet trading. The stars are sharp, but actually the comet has a line, a white line, and the tail is going actually with a different direction. So for me, it's like I started to apply. I was thinking for the first time, okay, there's a telescope that is tracking and guiding at the same time. So if I want to take a time lapse for this, I'm gonna consider that the stars are the main foreground and the comet are the stars that are moving next to it. So my target was to prevent the comet from trading. So I'm still okay. I know a little bit better more than before, but I was a beginner. It was maybe the fifth or the sixth time I used my telescope. It's like it was very new to deep sky astrophotography. Yeah, I was lucky that was featured on iPod because many people try to do this attempt, but yeah, it's honoring from time to time, by the way. So what was featured on iPod was the time lapse of this. What you are seeing right now is the stacking.
Yeah, image.
It was also pain in the ass, and it was the first time I tried it. I don't recommend. I later on tried it with the mono camera. By the way, I really don't recommend shooting a comet with a mono camera. It works, but you need a very strong computer for it.
Yeah, even for most of the time when we are shooting deep sky astrophotography, we want to go for longer exposures and longer total integration times, but it doesn't apply for comets. Actually, you want to go shorter exposures because the comet will be moving depending on the comet and depending on its position, and we don't want longer total exposures, total integration time, because then it's going to be another pain while you're, aligning and sticking your comet images, and then aligning and sticking star images, then subtracting the comet from the star images, and combining the comet, starless comet, with the star images, and so on. So it's
imagine
really,
this being done with LRGB.
imagine that. So
In 4
it
channels.
is really pain. So I really like comets, and I like this challenge. That's why I always try to shoot if there's a comet, and I like doing that. And it was 21P was my first, and even with Heart and Soul Nebula and the comet, I think it took me 2 or 3 days to figure out. I mean, I stacked, I aligned, stacked, did it again, and but at the end, I managed to do it. But it is really hard. So if you're going to start astrophotography, do not start with a comet. I highly recommend that.
Definitely. or stick to single exposures. This is what I did at the beginning, by the way.
Yeah. Even if you're let's say shooting let's say 1 minute exposure with a fast comet. I mean, fast comet means it's closer to Earth, because then you will see faster. Even in 1 minute exposure, you will see it trailing, right?
Exactly.
Even in 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when they get faster when they get close to the sun. So that's sometimes it depends on the focal length, of course. But 30 seconds. If you go deeper, 30 seconds might be very long, by the way.
Yeah. So hello, Rebula Astrophoto, and Görkem is saying comet imaging is a really challenging field of astrophotography. It is.
Yeah.
It is. But it is also fun. I love it. And there is one comet is being expected to get bright at the end of this year, by the way. I don't remember the name. Do you remember, Maroun?
I'm not sure if it was Leonardo or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I might be mistaken. I'm gonna check my list, but it's like comets are the least expected type of objects. It depends on their compositions and depends on their distance. Sometimes they cannot really tell their speed while they are very far from us. So if you remember, there were many comets from the last year that they were expected they're gonna become the new Hale-Bopp, but it's like they ended up being either nothing, either they disintegrated.
There was one before Neowise.
Even the one that we just shared the picture on, not the 21P, the Neowise, it was not expected to be this bright at the time of discovery. Later on,
there was Swan, actually. There was Swan before before Neowise, and it was
Atlas
being expected to be Atlas also, but they disintegrated and just got lost. Anyways, so we are actually coming closer to 2 hours, and it has been an amazing talk. So let's
really
move.
Enjoying it, by the way.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we can continue till morning. Let's go number 15.
Okay.
This is really something.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of questions with that.
Yeah.
We've been talking with Can before the live session about this photo, and we were trying to figure out what he did. Yeah. So could you explain it to us?
Okay, so the first time before that, I wanted to go to the southern hemisphere. It's every northern hemispherian's dream is to actually go and shoot the Magellanic Clouds and the Carina Nebula and all those other gems of the southern hemisphere. So I always, before going there, I always wanted to check what is the difference between the northern sky and the southern sky. And while at a certain point of time I was doing my research, understanding what are the limits about the spatial geometries, orbital geometries, and all the stuff, I just thought about doing something that merges the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. And that was a discussion that I was having with Rita Najam, our common friend, before going to Atacama. And we were actually discussing all those potential ways of merging the northern sky and the southern sky. And I wasn't able to reach a conclusion, but for me, it's like all I wanted to have is like just collect the right data for it, and you have all the time later on to think about processing the way you want.
Yeah.
So I had an image from Lebanon back in the days that I wanted to complete it from the southern hemisphere. So just to give you a clear view about those pictures, the upper picture was taken from Lebanon in June 2016, June or July, don't remember very well. The second picture was taken 6 months later when the Earth rotates to the other side of the sun. So that's 6 months. And I went to the other side of Earth and I took the other side of the sky. So it's like I took this part from here and this art from here and I merged them. So regarding the blending between the first and the second picture, it was the easiest part. Actually, it was very fast. So I just put both pictures and did the mask. I did the gradient mask and it directly worked. I did not expect it's going to be so easy. But the hardest part is doing the right calculation, the right timing, and in order to do it. So yeah, it was a blending between an image taken from my country with another image to where I went to Atacama Desert. So it's a blending between Lebanon and Chile. And I was actually wanted to share it because when the revolution started in Lebanon, it's like we also had a revolution in Chile at the same time. So I really want to share this picture as a representation for both revolutions. If you're gonna go back. 1 year back almost, but yeah, it's like I did not know that. After finishing it, I shared it on social media. Later on, submitted it to iPod and just forgot about it. And later on, after 2 days, I just noted that it was very surprising when I woke up the day that I was featured on iPod. It's like I did not know that it was about to be this close. I thought that people maybe they need to practice astrophotography for 10 or 15 years before getting their first iPod. So it's like, it was very honoring back in the day. It's like we celebrated with friends and yeah.
Without any Lebanese food.
Dark humor.
Okay. So, and let's go to, because we also want to do the last part, Maroun. Let's get a little faster if you like. Actually, there's good number of audiences still watching. We can go further, but let's go to number 16.
Maybe they will kick us out later on.
Yeah.
They probably will.
Yeah, this is the the garlic name.
So this is the garlic or onion. Is it garlic or onion?
I guess it's garlic.
Okay. Or maybe pomegranate. It looks like pomegranate also.
Yeah, it can be also.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't have lots of alternatives. There's names for it, but it was recently also featured on iPod with the third name. So it's mostly known with CTB1, Abel 85, and some people call it, I guess it's unofficial to be called also the Garlic Nebula. There's no specific name, just like the Orion Nebula for this one. But I discovered 2 days ago when it was featured on iPod that it has also another...
2 days ago, 1 or 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's one of my recent images that I have taken. It was the longest integration time I have done.
How long?
It was, I aimed for 100, by the way. I got around 70. I'm gonna do my best not to go very long the next time. I have
sorry,
something
once again, it is 70?
about
70?
70 hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the longest integration time I have done. It might be nothing compared to other
What camera, what filter, what optical
I was
system?
using in here the Broadband Filters, and with my camera was actually, it was already sent for repair. So my friend of mine lended me his camera. It was the ASI 1600, the monochromatic camera. So yeah, it was taking across a month.
So is it LRGB or is it hydrogen alpha?
Okay.
S2?
That's.
Yeah.
I think I know where you're going. That's H alpha. That's dual. That's H alpha and O3. The stars are RGB. But I'm gonna presume your question. You're gonna ask me, how did you get 3 colors out of 2 narrowbands, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, there is a certain combination that we can do on PixInsight site instead of using the HOO, because it's an HOO image. On the 2 of the bands, you can actually put some conditions if there's in order to assure a smooth transitions between the colors. So if the colors were very close to each other, actually you can just create. You can do a certain insight of the third color, so which is actually the combination between the 2 of them. So it's not very representative to what we have in the sky. So it's a dual narrowband. So it's two narrow bands, dual bands. So it's like we are supposed to receive 2 colors, the red and blue, and the combination of them. But this one was I used the PixInsight function.
That's what we call bicolor. Actually, that's what we call bicolor.
Yeah, exactly. Originally, it is supposed to be bicolor, this image, but this twist was added with this PixInsight combination function. I can send it in the chat. Maybe we can share it later on.
Okay. I should say that I'm really big fan of bicolor imaging, by the way. And even with the color camera, you know, with narrow band filters.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not very experienced in this field. It's like true that I came from the landscape, but I really like the deep sky more than landscape nowadays. And if you ask me which one I prefer, actually it's something in the middle. It's the deepscape, which is putting some deep sky images and with the landscape. But I'm not talking in here about doing those heavy stacking, about 100 images, or maybe taking an image from here and sticking it on Photoshop on a certain program. No, I really like the real images of deepscapes. For example, the single exposure, or for example, just like the comet image, the NEOWISE image that was featured on. So it was taken with a telescope back. So I really like this ground with some deep sky objects. So, but when it comes to this topic in specific, once I was, because, you know, when we all start doing the narrowband, we get the H and S and O, especially the sulfur. It's like, I rarely use the sulfur filter. I'm actually planning to remove it from my filter wheel and put something else on its plate. And I believe I only published 1 image with SHO, which was the three narrow bands. And all the rest of the time, once I took 3 bands, but I merged the S.
Do you think S2 is a loss of time?
Sorry?
Do you think S2 is a loss of time?
I'm not saying it's a loss of time. It's a matter of taste, but I don't like those. I avoid those. I prefer the red and blue. I like my image to be red and blue in general, just like the next image.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's just personal.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to slide 17. Don't think that I'm rushing, but you know it is 12 in Turkey. But you know there are people watching from all over the world.
And I have work tomorrow.
Yeah, and yeah, people have work tomorrow. So please feel free, you know, to kick us out.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is a spaghetti nebula. It's one of my targets that I really wanted to image since a long time. Okay, what do you see from me right now?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just pitch black.
Absolutely
Okay, let me
nothing.
try something.
Zero light pollution.
Zero light pollution.
Can you see now?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Lighting. Yeah, the thing is that I tried to image this target long time ago. For it was a DSLR, was a tracker, was putting my DSLR on the mount, was guiding all the stuff. But I always was receiving very low signals. So this one worked when I put my 130 Aussie ZWO 183mm with filter wheel on the 135 millimeter. And one of the things when I bought this, when I was thinking about this combination, was actually this target. So many things about the combination of this camera that I bought was actually to later on put it on this lens and image this target. So I do consider that it's one of my favorite images that I have taken. It might not be the favorite for many people, but personally, it's like I find that it's the favorite that I have taken, especially on this target. And I have learned a lot out of this object because it took me around 1 or 2 months of processing. And I was sharing my results with my friend. It's like the first result was very ugly. The next one was a little bit better. So it was, I have a transition of this target from when it started from 0, when I was bad processing, until reaching this kind of situation. I'm still sure that it can get better, but I'm not going to spend any second on processing this one anymore. But because I don't like to go back to old data, but it's very funny if you see the progress on processing this target. And each time I process a target that takes a long time of processing, I learn a lot, and I apply them in future targets.
Yeah, that's a very nice target. I tried once with the duo narrow band that I have is STC duo, and there was nothing, absolutely nothing. Even
you
in
need to modify your camera.
No, I need to buy a camera.
Yeah, also.
Yeah. So maybe I sell this one to John, and I move on because I sell my old stuff to John. Anyways, yeah, and I saw nothing, absolutely nothing, only stars. So I gave up quickly because it is really faint.
Do you really think you're gonna get anything else but stars and any modified camera? It's like I was taking a 10 minutes exposure on the f2.0 of the Samyang 135 millimeter. It's like you only see stars. Even this, you will only see stars. It's a very dim target. There are lots of other dimmer targets that I'm planning to shoot during the next season, but it's like I did not expect that I might reach something with this image back in the day. So it's very natural to receive what you received.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing with my camera, actually, Maroun, there is no filters, UV IR cut filters at the moment, zero stock. So even if I wanted to, modify my camera, it's impossible. So I will go for, for Astro dedicated camera anyways. Yeah, and then last topic, Maroun. What? Yeah. So let's go to that. Not the slide, but how are we going to do that, guys?
The calendar. Okay, so Maroun's gonna share his screen. Maroun, tell me just when you're ready.
Yes, okay. I just want to, as a small introduction. I usually used to do a printed calendar every year, but it was kind of impossible for many reasons, this one. So I decided to go digital, just like everything, just like most of our meetings, most of our courses are going digital. So why not porting my calendar also towards digital? So I made a small, it's a browser extension where you can actually, if you use Chrome or Firefox or Internet or Edge, actually not Internet Explorer, And several browsers that are descendant of the Chromium, for example, or Firefox. There's actually a new plugin if you are interested. I can share my screen if you want.
I'll just jump to your screen. Okay. We see the calendar. You might just want to switch your screen. Okay. I'm sharing your one. Yeah.
I'm always used to demos. It's like live demos never work. Anyway, I just put the old screen on it, and you can simply add it to Firefox. This can also work on Google Chrome. You can go and search for Astronomy calendar or Google Chrome. You will see this picture taken, this image, this calendar created by Moves. So you can add it, and suddenly now it's like whenever you add, you open a new tab. You can so you've got a switch between the months if you want, and you've got those events of the current month. For example, there are lots of active Mars during the next during February. So with very representative images and description about the image. So if you're interested in having a very nice new tab, for example, this is a new tab for google.com, and whenever you a new tab you want to see do something else, you just had a new calendar, and your keyboard remains at the search bar. You can still always search or write the URL that you want, and that's it. I just wanted to share. You can do the same on Chrome, by the way. You can install the calendar, and if you were annoyed of this calendar, you can just go to the extensions and uninstall it, and we're done. New tab. The new tab is green. So that's it. I just wanted to make this small demo. Okay. So I'm gonna add this calendar again because I just removed it. So I just add it again to the new tab. So you can actually keep changes. You can actually, you've got the event in here, the event, the description about this image you just saw. You can also move across. You can see there are 12 pictures below. Every picture represents a month. You can actually also use the arrow to move the arrow of the keyboard. Another thing, for example, this is one of those images taken in Iceland in 2015. This is February. This is a mineral moon. This is a Milky Way from North Lebanon. There are some, of course, with the events that will be happening during this month. And this application is going to be receiving some monthly updates. For example, if there's a new event, there's something that was not predicted at the beginning, can be added in here, some orbitals, some interesting stuff. So Yeah, there are some stuff. For example, this is also taken in north of Lebanon, where there are still so many dark skies. This is okay. This is, you're not seeing it in full resolution, I guess. It's a picture you can see from the southern hemisphere. Of course, it's gonna be better on any other screen, but the resolution restriction at the moment. Another also resolution restriction in here. This one I'm gonna try to fix in another way. Okay. So it's one of the photos that I like. It's like Jupiter above a fir tree. So, and this is it's also a little bit of deepscape, knowing that it was taken with a very wide angle, but you can see the Lagoon Nebula and some emission nebulosity of the Milky Way along with Jupiter. So most of those pictures are not taken in 2020, but they are collected. It's like I take pictures from here and there. It's like from my previous trips when traveling was actually much easier than now.
Yeah, this is awesome. So that I saw that you shared it's on social media, the downloadable version. So if you would like to say it, we can share it on chat so people can download it, or you can do it by yourself. I mean, if you have the links, or you can just comment the links tomorrow when this session will be online as a video on YouTube.
Definitely.
Yeah, so people can download it also.
And don't you think that New Eyes was the best thing that ever happened to 2020? It's like
it was
amazing.
It was amazing. And John, Okan, and I, there was some certain moment that in Turkey they released some of the precautions, and we were in the field. We were near a province called Afyonkarahisar with some really nice historical landscapes, and we were shooting every night. So we were like so excited. That was so beautiful.
I totally understand, especially at the beginning, but it was still a morning comet. It's like it was harder to reach, and you had to wake up every day at 3 a.m. in order to take a picture.
Or don't sleep at all.
Yeah.
Those days were like
I spent sleepless nights to catch it. Like I went to so many places to shoot it with all even with my Samyang 135 without a mount, just
you generated an iconic image, by the way, Mustafa. It's one of my favorite images on this comet.
With the red ion tail also, because it was there for a very limited time. Then maybe that Sebastian Wolpmer prepared some kind of article where the red was coming, because some people said that there was no red tail, but there was. It was there for a few days. So it was amazing. That was one of the sleepless nights I spent to catch the comet.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like because it's like I also traced this comet all over Lebanon. It's like I went to the north, I took it from the backyard, I took it from my rooftop. I guess you also did the same.
Yeah, I did.
Because I guess you did it because you know that this type of comet is very rare, especially that you remember comet Hale-Bopp and 1996 and 1997. So those, because it remained for 8 months in the sky.
And I am old enough to remember.
It's like you will not miss this one.
Yeah, and I'm old enough to remember Halley also.
Yeah, so the 1986.
Yeah.
I was 1 year old back then.
I was 12 years old. So I'm old enough to remember that one too.
Which one actually was better, the Halley or the Hale-Bopp?
Well, I actually don't remember seeing it, because it is like a million years ago. But I remember Hale-Bopp, even inside Ankara, it's like basically Bortle 9, it was there, and it was it was really big, even bigger than NeoWise.
Definitely.
Even closer than
NeoWise.
NeoWise, and even brighter than NeoWise. So I don't really remember how late. I was just a little kid, but Bob was fantastic for sure. Yeah. So I think we're coming towards the end, and this is our only second live, but we've had lots of fun, and also not only fun, also lots of information. I'm sure people will comment on the video.
Yeah.
I hope they will, and I want them to do the comments. So
yeah, I will check them. I haven't been checking everything.
Yeah, please check, and let's punish the ones who are not. Joking, but yeah, it has been very informative and very joyful one. And before I leave my words to Okan and John, and to you, of course, please visit our website. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like and comment, because we will grow with your comments and critics and good comments, bad comments, whatever they are. Just be respectful and visit our social media. And thanks a lot, Maroun, for being here. I appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed this conversation today.
You will have the last words after Okan and John.
No, I'm done. Okay.
He's going out already.
Yeah.
Well, Maroun, it was great to have you here, man. And thanks a lot for sharing your experiences and the stories and your ideas about filters. It was quite valuable for us as well. And glad you enjoyed the chat.
Can I answer now or at the end?
You have to wait till the end.
Okay.
I will tell now.
All right, man. Well, it was really good to have you here, and it's really great to meet you, and I hope we will see you in another day in another place as well. We are actually looking forward to come to Lebanon one day, but just for the foods, nothing more special. And
you're not gonna see me,
maybe why not?
That's true experience.
Yeah, you can just sit by. You don't have to eat.
I make some good burgers, by the way, but not Lebanese food.
Lebanese burgers.
Lebanese burgers.
Okay.
Oh.
Like burgers.
That's a Marounite burger.
John might be after of that. John might like that. Yeah.
I love burgers. Yeah.
Well.
Okay.
There's a new burger shop there. Okay, Maroun. Yeah, it's all yours. Please tell us your last words. Not last words.
No, it's gonna be simple. I really enjoyed it. It's like straightforward. It's like we are sitting all together, but it's like we've got 300 to 400 kilometers away from each other. Yeah. But it's like the same. And we recently got used to all those online meetings and everything. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this interaction that has been happening between the team. Sorry for being late for submitting all the information as usual, but yeah, I enjoyed it. And thanks a lot, Mustafa, especially for considering me and the second part of this one, and looking forward to meet soon.
I know you would like to be the first one, but
yeah, Ross took it from me. I hate you, Ross.
Yeah, just joking. And thanks a lot
for... Too much pressure? No, too much pressure for the first, by the way. No, I cannot handle the first one.
Yeah, that's why I knew you, and that's why I chose you as second. And thanks a lot for everyone watching, asking questions, and for the ones who contribute this chat. Thanks a lot, everybody. It's great.
Yeah, guys, just don't forget to give a like, subscribe, and put a comment down below. And also you can find Maroun's links in the description below, and everything else in the description below.
Yeah, it's also in chat at the moment.
Nazım also,
thanks to Nazım,
okay.
Yeah, shared the social media of Maroun. And I want Maroun to say the last words, and we are out.
Yeah. What I wanted to say that I like this this idea that you are working on. I actually wish you good luck on the future, let's say, visitors you're gonna have on this channel, and looking forward to them. So I'm definitely following this. I still need to watch Ross Clark's session, the first one. So I think I'm gonna do it today.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Good luck for the rest.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man.
And thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed the live stream. Have a good night.
Goodbye.
Good night, Maroun.
Bye-bye.